And now stay tuned for another original Studio B production right here on the Voice17104.com.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice. Greetings and salutations, my good friends. Welcome again to the Richard James Show. Every day is a blessing. Today is no exception. You know, a few weeks ago, we put on a show dealing with women in politics, dealing with the whole issue of the glass ceiling and the kind of discrimination that women undergo in the good old USA and indeed in the world. A lot of things have changed in a very short period of time, and particularly on the world stage, where we have seen the Taliban has taken over in this Middle Eastern country again, a nation where women are considered property and nothing more than concubine. We won't get off into that because we have enough to deal with here in the United States. We also are always concerned with human beings, no matter where they are on the planet Earth. The Taliban in the past has not allowed a woman to drive, arranged marriages, not allowed women to be educated and to be treated as they were a camel or a horse or a piece of property. And believe it or not, in the United States of America and in other portions of the so-called civilized world, we've had some issues also with our treatment of women. And it's just amazing to me. Women constitute the majority of our population. You know, that's a factor. And in spite of the fact of them being a majority, discrimination took place. And that's why when we developed the 1964 Civil Rights Act and other legislation and policies, we have had to highlight no discrimination against women. And women are beginning to wake up, because the only way that change can come about is that the individual who is suppressed and subject to oppression also lift up their voice and begin to fight for their place in society. We just had an election, November of last year, in which an African-American woman, for the first time in history, was elected as Vice President of the United States. You know, prior to that, we were blessed to have an African-American male that was elected president, but we got an African-American woman, Kamala Harris, well prepared as elected Vice President of the United States. And we wonder, was this a signal of things to come? Because we beginning to look at, you know, one thing you can understand with elections, with politics, and with anything else, that things come in steps. Your step one, you might go into be a city council member of a particular location. Step two might be a municipal election as mayor. Then we go to a legislator, and then we go to the governor's office. And we do have many women all over the country that are in the legislature. But prior to the last decade, we didn't have a lot of women that were elected mayor. Now we're having women elected mayor all over the country. Washington, D.C., for example, nation's capital. Atlanta, Georgia. Some people call Atlanta the Mecca of the South. Many people are migrating because of the progressiveness, because of the stable economy of Atlanta, Georgia, African-American mayor, excuse me. And we're gonna just pick out a few cities and take a look at today where African-Americans were elected as mayor for the first time, okay? Because some of these places are African-American females have been elected mayor time and time again. Atlanta, for example, a place where we've had other African-American males. Washington, D.C. has had several African-American males, but we've had some cities that have never had an African-American female elected as mayor. One such city is Chicago. Some people call it the Windy City. Chicago is the second largest city in the United States of America. It is a huge city. And much to the surprise and the chagrin of many, an African-American female by the name of Laura Lightfoot was elected for the first time as mayor of the city of Chicago. And the interesting thing about it is that her opponent, her major opponent, was also an African-American female. But she is the first African-American female to be elected. Community person, strong background in dealing with police and policing, taking strong positions when it comes to making sure that the police do not commit brutality on individuals, strong advocacy against crime. And you know, Chicago is a crime-ridden city. I'm just gonna say it. They kill folks in Chicago. I'm sorry you don't like the truth. You need to listen to another broadcast. They kill folks in Chicago, Illinois. Their crime rate, their murder rate is extremely high. And one of the pioneers that's been fighting to bring about change in this area and have done some good. I just don't want to say they have a high crime rate. There's a strong effort to bring that some change within that. And one of the persons that have been on the forefront has been the distinguished council person, the distinguished Laura Lightfoot. And we're going to look at a video of Laura Lightfoot at this point. Now, let me just mention to you also before we get to that video, not quite yet, the other two that we're going to deal with. Another major city that's been on our radar screen, San Francisco. San Francisco, the city by the bay, the Golden State Bridge, one of the most noted cities in the United States. London Breed, interesting name. London Breed is the first African-American female to be elected mayor of the city of San Francisco. And we're going to take a peek at an interview with London Breed to get an idea exactly where London Breed is coming from. What are the issues that London Breed stand for? What are some of the obstacles that London Breed had difficulty with in order to get past an electorate? San Francisco, a very diverse city, highly populated city, London Breed. And you remember in the headlines, there was a gentleman by the name of George Ferguson, for example, that was killed. The city of Ferguson, small town, the relatively small town, but there was a lot of emphasis placed on this particular city. The leadership was considered racist and looked at police officers really getting away with this whole issue of police brutality in this area. Newsflash, they elected their first African-American female as mayor. Yes, they did. Ella Jones. Ella Jones, the first African-American female. And she comes with a history and she comes with a background. So we're just plucking out 3 areas, but I'm telling you, we are looking at a positive movement that is taking place all over the country, in which African-American females are beginning to get more involved in the political arena on the areas that we mentioned, but also in cities throughout the countries where you would never think that it would happen. It is happening. And I see that as a beautiful, beautiful phenomenon. I think it's critical that we crash that that glass ceiling, and the best way to do it is to go at it directly. And African-American females, for example, in the election of Joe Biden, were critical for his election. And without African-American females, Joe Biden, I don't believe, would have ever been elected president of the United States. So we'll look forward, and I welcome African-American females, look forward to their leadership, look forward to the sensitivity and the intellect that they bring, and the interest and concern that they bring to the table, and the love that they bring to the table, the unconditional love that they bring to the table, but with also the discipline, the leadership, and the effectiveness that we've gotten from their leadership. I can remember back in the day when Shirley Chisholm was the first African-American female to run for president of the United States. And now we've seen African-American females begin to adopt strong, direct policies and organizing. Search organizations that come into mind, such as LINCS and AKAs, non-fraternal organizations, are coming in and getting involved in the game. They're not sitting on the sidelines, getting involved in the game and electing their own as mayor. We're going to start out by taking a look at a video of the election, historical election in the city of Chicago of Black people.
Thank you, Chicago. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. A few moments ago, I spoke with Toni Preckwinkle. In this election, Toni and I were competitors, but our differences are nothing compared to what we can achieve together. Now that it's over, I know we will work together for the city that we both love. Today, you did more than make history. You created a movement for change. You know, when we started this journey 11 months ago, nobody gave us much of a chance. We were up against powerful interest, a powerful machine, and a powerful mayor. But I remembered something Martin Luther King said when I was very young. Faith, he said, is taking the first step when you can't see the staircase. Well, we couldn't see the whole staircase when we started this journey, but we had faith, an abiding faith in this city, its people, and in its future. So we took that first step. And as Father Mike says, we let our faith overcome our fears. And look at where we are today. Just look at us. We still have faith. We are still determined, and with this mandate for change, now we're going to take the next steps together. Together, we can and will finally put the interest of our people, all of our people, ahead of the interest of a powerful few. Together, we can and will make Chicago a place where your zip code doesn't determine your destiny. And that means we can and we will make our streets, all of our streets, safe again. We can and we will give every single one of our children, all of our children, access to the high-quality education they deserve. We can and we will give our neighborhoods, all of our neighborhoods, the same time and attention that we give the downtown. And we won't just invest in our neighborhoods. We can and we will make sure our neighborhoods, on all of our neighborhoods, and all of our neighbors are invested in each other. This is not us versus them, or neighborhoods versus downtown. We are in this together, and we will grow together. We can and we will build trust between our people and our brave police officers so that the communities and police trust each other, not fear each other. We can and we will break this city's endless cycle of corruption. And never again, never ever allow politicians to profit from elected positions. Together, we can and we will remake Chicago thriving, prosperous, better, stronger, fairer for everyone. Over the last 11 months, every single day, I've been reminded, sometimes painfully, that our campaign, our work, matters. I've seen the tears of mothers who have lost their children to the city's plague of senseless gun violence. Maria Pike's son, Ricky, a double honors student at Le Cordon Bleu, was gunned down at the age of 24. Michelle Dowdy's son, Malcolm, a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard, was killed by a stray bullet blindly fired into a crowd at age 33. And Milagros Burgos' daughter, Alexandra, was sitting in a friend's house when a bullet came through the window and killed her. And she was just 18 years old. These mothers cried, and then with courage and determination, turned their tears into a demand for change, setting up organizations like Moms Demand Action. Our duty as a city, as leaders, as neighbors, as people, is to stand with these mothers and children and put an end to this gun violence once and for all. We must say, enough is enough. I've met small business owners who want to start or grow their businesses, but they say it takes 2 years just to get a permit or a license or a sign. These business owners are part of the economic engine of our city. They serve their neighborhoods and create jobs. They just want a city government that's a help and not a hindrance. It's not too much to ask. And so we're going to help our small businesses and not stand in their way. And I've also met families from our immigrant communities, people from Mexico, people from Central and South America, people from the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, people from all over the world. And these people are scared. They're scared of the climate of hate and fear, fanned and promoted by a culture in Washington, D.C., and from the White House, in the capital of our own country. They're our neighbors, and they're scared of a knock on the door in the middle of the night, followed by agents coming in to haul them away. For 150 years, Chicago has welcomed generations of immigrants from all over the world and all over America. They built this city and made it what it is today. Now it is our solemn duty as a city, as people, as neighbors, to stand up for our immigrant families, to protect them and stand against hate. And we will make sure Chicago is a place that will welcome immigrants for the next 150 years. Recently, a student heading off to college asked me an important question. When I graduate, he asked, why should I come back here to Chicago? What will you do in 4 years to convince me to come back? Questions like this are in the minds of a lot of people. Should I move here? Should I stay? Our duty is to make sure the answer is a resounding yes. Everything, literally everything, depends on it. A shrinking city, which is where we are right now, just will not do. To thrive, Chicago must grow. It simply must. And if we make our streets safer, our schools better, our neighborhoods stronger, our businesses large and small, more prosperous, then people will want to stay and they will want to move here. If we work together to solve our toughest challenges, Chicago will grow again, and we cannot afford to fail. Out there tonight, a lot of little girls and boys are watching. They're watching us. And they're seeing the beginning of something, well, a little bit different. They're seeing a city reborn, a city where it doesn't matter what color you are, and where it surely doesn't matter how tall you are. Where it doesn't matter who you love, just as long as you love. Let me say that again. Where it doesn't matter who you love, just as long as you love with all your heart. In the Chicago we will build together, we will celebrate our differences. We will embrace our uniqueness, and we will make certain that all have every opportunity to succeed. Every child out there should know this. Each of you, one day, can be the mayor of Chicago. Want to know why? Just look right here. One day, you will stand on my shoulders, as I stand on the shoulders of so many. The shoulders of strong black women like Ida B. Wells, Gwendolyn Brooks, and Annie Ruth Lowry.
All right. Wonderful, 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 wonderful presentation by Ms. Lightfoot, who's been in for a while now, and she's understands doing a great job in her position. So let's move ahead. We have others. Next, let's go across the Golden State Bridge to the city of San Francisco, the Bay Area. As I said, that we lifted up the election of Kamala Harris as Vice President of the United States, and she is from the Bay Area, born and raised in the Bay Area. We're going to lift up the newly elected mayor of the Bay Area, London Breed, who has been involved in the body politics in that area for some time and has been effective in the things that she's doing. San Francisco and the Bay Area has its problems, as do the entire state of California and the entire West Coast. And one of the major problems is the high cost of living and housing in San Francisco, which has resulted in a terrible problem with homelessness. You can see people living on the sidewalk in tents. That's one of the major issues that London Breed has to face, is homelessness. There are other issues. You have to look at the economy, the things that need to be done. But I think we have an individual here who is committed to bring about change. And we are also blessed to have the first African-American female that is in the role of mayor. Let's take a look at the video that we have on the election of London Breed.
It really lets people get to know my good friend, London, and get to know you a little bit better. So I really want to kind of start at the beginning of your journey growing up in San Francisco. And I know that your grandmother, like mine, was a really big influence on your life and a big inspiration for you. And, you know, someone who gave you tough love when you needed it. Yes. Can you just talk about that relationship and what she meant to you?
Well, believe it or not, I was somewhat of a difficult child. My grandmother raised me, and I felt like I was being disciplined every single day. But she really supported me. She encouraged me. She really was very blunt. She was honest about what was going on in our community. But she also made it clear that our responsibility is to really take care of one another. And so she did a lot for folks in the community. My grandmother wasn't the most affectionate person, but she was very giving. She would always cook. She would always give folks food. And I would say things like, "Mama, why are we giving away? We don't have much." And she's like, "Be quiet. That's what you do for people. This is what we're supposed to do." And never went into detail and explained it. But then I found myself later in life, when I started working in the community, doing some of the same things that my grandmother did in terms of discipline and telling kids to behave, but also making sure that I was feeding them and working with them and having conversations. And so, you know, it was a very challenging environment, really challenging with my family too, and the dynamics in my family, and having family members in and out of the criminal justice system, having family members and friends who were killed, and going to funerals on a regular basis, and, you know, just the drugs and the violence and just all of the things that it entailed. And in fact, you know, the public housing development that I lived in, especially people know Plaza East and the Pink Palace and that area, folks would never come to this part of the city because it was really challenging. And so I grew up in the midst of that, but I think that's what really gave me the strength to do a job like this because I'm really fortunate that I had so many great people, including my teachers, including counselors, including places where I worked who really supported me and encouraged me. And I'm here today because so many people invested in me, and I didn't really understand at the time how valuable that was or what was really going on. And this is why what I do is so important. This is why Opportunities for All, a program that I started where we're going to make sure that every high school student has a paid internship here in San Francisco. This is why that's so important to me, is providing an opportunity for young people to grow and to thrive no matter where they come from. So that really shapes how I make policy here in San Francisco. And it was tough, but I made it through, and here I am as mayor of one of the best cities in the world, and it really is an honor and something that I don't take for granted. Every single day, I know that it's a blessing to be in a position like this, and with that comes an incredible responsibility to do good with this position.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that, she was really a part of giving you that sense of community and duty, right? And also teaching you and showing you what kind of future you could have through community. And you talk about that being so central to even your being encouraged to go to college, right? This community that you had all around you, despite the challenges, that you were still encouraged to succeed and to, get out of that. And I have a fun sort of when we were young memories, which is that I think we were at some fundraiser, and one of our friends had just graduated from law school, and I was on my way to law school, and you were like, dang, everybody's going to law school. I need to go to law school. And, of course, you went on to get a master's in public administration, and you stayed in San Francisco and continued to be in this community. But back then, you had no idea, right, that you would become the first Black female mayor of San Francisco and the second mayor in San Francisco's history, right?
I know I didn't. I wasn't even thinking about running for office. At that time, as you know, I was working in the community. I was working at a nonprofit agency, the African American Art and Culture Complex. I was on the Redevelopment Agency Commission. I knew that being actively engaged in politics in some capacity is really a way to help change policy and make things better for the community that I grew up in. And during that time, we were dealing with some of the worst violence in our city's history, where a number of homicides, they were happening in the Western Addition and the Bayview, mostly in the Mission, but especially in the Western Addition. And the crazy part about this is I grew up in this neighborhood where, sadly, so many of my friends were getting killed, but then this was their children. And it was very, for me, in thinking about even law school, is just really thinking about, well, I'm working in the community, I'm working with folks in the community, but what can I do more? And part of it was wanting to educate myself about the laws, educate myself about policy, educate myself about ways in which I can really make a serious impact on the neighborhood and change things for the better. And so ultimately, I was like, I don't want to really be a lawyer, so I don't think I'm going to go to law school. So why not? The next best thing, I went and got my master's in public administration at USF, and it just really was a great experience and just helped push me, I think, in the right direction. I decided I want to run for supervisor because the opportunity presented itself, and I wanted to, number one, have access to the city's budget to make changes and to cut waste so that we can invest city resources in a more effective and efficient way that serve people better. And also I wanted to change policies, and I wanted a seat at the table so that some of the policies that we've made in the past and still are making, sadly, have unintended consequences. And I wanted to have a seat at the table to put my perspective on the table for the purposes of developing better policy. So here I am. But it wasn't as if I thought this was going to happen.
Can we go back to that moment, by the way, when you first ran? Because you were the director of the African American Art and Culture Complex, right? So you were already in the community, working with youth in the community. But the moment when you decided to run was not an easy one, right? And an easy path. And you were typically, as a lot of women are told, as it turns out, and women of color, it's not your turn. Wait your turn, it's not your time, right? And made it nothing comes easily, but it was challenging. Can you talk about that experience?
Well, folks might remember, the District 5 supervisor, Ross Merkarimi, became sheriff, and then Ed Lee was mayor, and he had an opportunity to appoint someone, and he didn't appoint me, and I had to make the hard decision. I just couldn't sit back, because I just felt really strongly that if he had appointed someone I thought was someone I could work with and someone who would focus on the things that I cared about and understood those things, then I would have been supportive, but I didn't feel that way. And so I ran against that person. And in fact, it was a very tough campaign because, I didn't have a lot of support. The only person that actually was an elected official that supported me was Kamala Harris when she was the Attorney General, your aunt. So she went with me to pull papers, and I had all the community folks from all the different neighborhoods, but a lot of elected officials and other leaders and other organizations, they weren't supportive. And so I just went about my business, knocked on doors, talked to constituents, and I didn't give up. And I focused on the work, and I focused on talking about me, and here we go. I mean, it was really amazing. And when I won that night, I thought, whoa, I won. This is crazy. I mean, I think that about every election. I'm just like, whoa, is this really happening? It is happening. And it's like, wow, this is incredible.
Right. And here we are. Well, to put this in context, I think about the fact that we are seeing history made not only here in San Francisco, but across the country, right? We're in this moment where so many women are stepping up into leadership roles and leading in their communities and running for office, and many of them for the first time, right? And they're winning, and it's just an incredible moment we're witnessing. But as I'm sure as is the case for women and women of color especially, it's not always easy being the first or the only, right? And it can be lonely. It can be a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. How have you navigated that, being often in these circumstances the first or the only? And where do you draw support and strength in those tough moments?
Well, it can be lonely, and especially because there's still so many challenges that exist with my family and my friends, and here I am, mayor of San Francisco, and I definitely want better for them, which is why I'm pushing for changes to policies and equity and other things that we're focused on. And my strength comes from, a higher power. Like I'm a spiritual person, and I know that's not popular to talk about when you are in elected office, but I'm a spiritual person, and I pray and I ask God to give me the strength to, make the right decisions and do the right thing and give me guidance and support around, these very tough decisions. And so, and then I have a lot of really close friends that are my great network people that I can call on for advice and counsel, and just some amazing people, some positive people, strong folks who just really are there for me, and that has really been very helpful. What's also great about being in a position like this, what I love is when I'm out in the community and someone comes up to me and says, I'm rooting for you. I believe in you. I know you're going to make San Francisco better. Like that really gives me strength too, because they're excited about, what we're going to be able to do to change things in San Francisco, because we know that we have a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. And so I get strength from just really being out, especially in the neighborhoods, and also the work that we do, and just someone who we get housing for, and people will walk up to you in tears, like even today where we opened 83 new units of family affordable housing, and 50% of those units went to formerly homeless families.
Yep.
I mean, and I announced that today, during that time, is right next door, because of the windfall money that the city received, we're going to build another 250 units. 100% of those 250 units will go to homeless individuals. And it's like that gives me life, just to know that we are making the right investments, and those investments have a real impact on somebody's life. Because I grew up in poverty. I grew up, in a situation where, we didn't have heat most of the time. We didn't even have a shower. This is over 20 years of my life. We never had a shower where I lived. And the conditions, of where I lived were just conditions that, no one should have to live in. And so when you've had to live like that, I wasn't homeless,
right?
But, I've had to live in the kinds of conditions that, it's still in my head to this day. I'm reminded every time I think about, like, when you've had to live like that for over 20 years of your life, and then, people are living like that, or people are sleeping on the streets, then there's nothing that's going to be more important than trying to figure out a solution to that. And so, there's so many things, and this is just an incredible time, and it's something that I truly enjoy.
Well, and it speaks to the fact that your life experience informs your decision-making and your leadership, in part because you understand personally the impact that this has on real lives, right? This isn't just sort of a policy question.
Yes.
You understand the impact on real lives. And I'm curious, generally, economic justice is a big issue for you. And building on what you just talked about and the circumstances in which you grew up in, how does that life experience inform your view on economic justice?
I think, everything. Last year, we were able to get legislation passed to eliminate fines and fees. And actually, our late public defender, Jeff Adachi, was a leader in this particular effort, because what happens when someone does a crime and they, unfortunately, there's restitution, so this does not remove restitution if there's money owed, but the courts have all these layers of fees for your ankle monitor, your social this, your services that, your court fees, and all of these fees. And what would happen at the African American Art and Culture Complex, because I would, sometimes hire people who had served time, folks I know, made a mistake, want a second chance, give them a second chance. After a few paychecks, all of a sudden you're getting a letter to garnish their wages for these things. And then, you have this, young man upset and mad and saying, I don't even want to work. I should go back out there and sell dope. And, you just think, like, no, you don't want to, like, break somebody, right? So those kinds of experiences, like living and knowing what people are going through just to try and get their lives together, and then what they choose to do when they feel like the system constantly financially beats them down for so many different reasons, it's something that I know we need to address. And so we've been doing it with the city, with the fines and fees, and before, when I was on the board, reducing the fees for commissary and for phone calls and tow fees and all of these things that sadly have a really horrible impact on poor people and their ability to, just survive in general. And so I think about those things because I think about, what I had to endure. My grandmother and our phone bills for my brothers collect calls from jail, and how, our phone would get cut off on a regular basis because she couldn't pay it. But then there's other families who would put their phones in other people's names, and, just all of those things I think about when trying to make changes to policies, because it just sets you back, and it sets you back, and it sets you back. And you're like, when are we ever going to get ahead?
Right.
When are we ever going to be in a situation where, life is okay? I don't need to be wealthy, but I just want things to be okay. And so I think about, just all of my experiences and how policy can play such a critical role in really changing that. And then also the right financial investments can play a critical role in helping to really change someone's life as well.
And it's the point that, I mean, we're seeing this in the bail reform conversation as well, that we're finally having at a national level, right? But that these fees add up, and these families are something like, $400 away from catastrophe. And if you're paying that out in fines and court fees, you're done.
And then what it does for your credit too.
Exactly.
If for example, you're paying a bail bondsman, and all of a sudden, you stop paying, and then the collection fees, and then it goes on your credit. I mean, it's a never-ending cycle.
Right. And San Francisco, in fact, is the first city, right, to implement this, and it's now being replicated across the country. So San Francisco has always been a leader on a lot of this stuff. But can you talk about the process too to get that, legislation passed and to get political support to actually make that happen?
Yeah, well, part of, how I approach doing legislation is probably different than some folks. Some folks have come up with an idea, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're going to tax everybody for this, so we're going to, charge a fee for that. And so what I decided to do, because I wanted to make sure that we understood it. So there was a task force, of course. There were all the different city departments, the sheriff's department, juvenile probation, the public defender, the treasurer. We brought everyone that touched this issue to the table to have a conversation, to gather the data, and to get a better understanding. And then also to talk to some people who paid the fees and some people who were struggling to pay the fees. And we discovered that, basically of all of these fees, about 21,000 people owed millions of dollars, and we weren't even collecting like 15% of these fees. And just the amount of money we were spending on process was just ridiculous. It was just money down the drain. And so gathering that data and showing that, it's better to just really not include this, because it's also not helping. It's not doing anything to help someone get back on their feet and do well in life. It's in fact stopping that. So the process was really about the data, the conversations, bringing everyone to the table, folks who care about this particular issue, and then crafting the right piece of legislation that would help address this particular issue. So it was definitely a process, and a successful one at that, which brought so many people together for something that folks are just really happy about.
Mm-hmm. So homelessness, moving on to other policy issues. It's no secret that San Francisco, like many cities, is struggling with homelessness. And you mentioned this earlier, but you're working to add more shelter beds and to build more supportive housing. But a lot of these challenges also seem to be around mental health and drug abuse, right? What is the city doing to address that specifically?
So, it's you're right, a very complicated problem, and difficult to help people sometimes who are struggling with mental illness and substance use disorder. In fact, I've been really focused on trying to look at mental health differently in San Francisco, where we really shine a lens on this particular issue, and we try and push through policies that are going to help us help those individuals. I am hiring a director of mental health reform that will serve under the Department of Public Health, so that we can develop a comprehensive system under one umbrella to really try and address what we know is a crisis. In fact, oftentimes, sadly, people who use meth, the psychosis that's brought on because of that drug use sometimes is not always reversible. And it's like a lot of stuff going on where we're talking about the issue, we know what the data says, we know what the problem is, but we have no real solutions. Mm-hmm. And so part of what I'm pushing for, and again, it's somewhat controversial, but strengthening our conservatorship laws so that we are able, for someone who can't make decisions for themselves, we are able to, through the courts, provide a guardian that will make decisions for them, whether it's their family members or whether it's someone from the city and county of San Francisco. And in some instances, this would require someone to be committed to one of our mental health stabilization beds. And in fact, we've been able, since I've taken office, to open 100 new mental health stabilization beds, and we're going to to open another 50 this year for the purposes of trying to get people help, trying to get them treatment, trying to get them the wraparound support that they need. And the controversy here, of course, is people feel like, well, why are, people have rights. And I understand that people have rights. This is really, not about trying to take away their rights, but I'm not blind. I see everything everyone else sees out on the streets with people who are struggling.
We have been listening
cycling them in.
Dialogue. We have been listening to a dialogue with the newly elected mayor of San Francisco. No, London Breed, the newly elected mayor of San Francisco, as I said. Extremely impressive individual that come from the belly of the poor community. She lifts it up and let you know exactly where she is. You might want to go up on YouTube and check this complete video out. This video is over an hour long and we have other things to deal with, but I at least wanted to give you a taste of some of the high quality African-American females and those who have been elected for the first time also. And the things that the policy and the things that they're instituting, which is absolutely tremendous. Our next video, our next person that we want to present, and I won't go into a whole lot of dialogue because we don't have a whole lot of time, is Ella Jones. Ella Jones has been elected the first African-American female who was the mayor of Ferguson. If you remember, Ferguson was in the headlines on the issue of police brutality. Well, let's take a look at this video. The first elected African-American female mayor of Ferguson.
Jones as their mayor. She is the first woman and the first African-American person to hold that office in the city's 126-year history. And this morning, we are so excited to be welcomed by Mayor-elect Jones. Good morning and congratulations.
Good morning, Allie, and thank you.
We were just speaking before we came back. I asked you if you got any sleep last night, and you said?
No, I didn't get any sleep. I finally decided to turn my phone off so I can get some sleep. And it's just so exciting that the people went to the polls and selected their choice. That's very exciting. And it's humbling also. I'm just ready to serve the people.
Well, I want to start there. Your victory last night was picked up nationally by the New York Times, CNN, among others. That doesn't happen with many municipal elections. So your win is a huge milestone in the city. And the city's changed a lot in the past 6 years. So what does that mean to you now with this new responsibility that you hold?
Well, the new responsibility is that the people will have an opportunity to interact more with their government. I am going to be very transparent. Matter of fact, after my first 90 days in office, I have already started putting a task force together so that we can do a town hall and the people of Ferguson will know the state of their city. So it's very important that the people be informed about what's going on so they can be a part of the government.
Just speaking with you this morning, I can tell that your passion for the city is undeniable. You've lived there for more than 40 years. So what do people need to know about Ferguson this morning as you join us?
Well, people need to know that Ferguson is a very, very good place to raise a family. Ferguson is diverse. Matter of fact, my husband and I decided to move here over 40 years ago because we wanted our daughter to walk to school and a good education with the Ferguson Florissant School District. And plus my husband wanted to be closer to McDonnell Douglas, but is now Bowie. So we have had a positive experience here with Ferguson. And I just want everyone to know that it's a great place. It's not what you see on television. Had an opportunity to take some people to walk around the various neighborhoods. and they were surprised at the housing stock here in Ferguson. So it's a good place. I have great neighbors. Um, Come on and move to Ferguson and experience a good quality of life.
Mayor-elect, I do want to bring up the death of Michael Brown in 2014. We have seen some changes that took place in the city, but with the recent death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, it's obvious there is still a lot of work to do as a country. So what is the answer? And I know that's a tough question.
Well, it is a tough question, and it's people working together. You know, we are in the midst of a pandemic, and the only way we are going to get to the other side of this pandemic is just people working together. We have to be more tolerant of each other and be willing to do things that we have not done before.
You know, Captain Ron Johnson was joining us earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, and he said we are more alike than we are different, and that really stuck with me. It was powerful.
We are more alike. I have several neighbors. We have a lot of things in common. We do a lot of things together, so we are more alike than we are different. I believe if people will only take the time and sit down and interact with each other, then they will see that we are more alike.
My last question for you, and I'm sure this is what kept you up last night. After you're sworn in, any immediate plans that we can expect?
Well, after I am sworn in, my immediate goal is to interact with the council and to make certain that we are on the same page. We want to work together. We want to move the city forward and work on the businesses that were looted. The glasses were broke, the windows were broken out. Really help them to get back, because most of them was working to open their business because in the midst of this pandemic, and now this is a setback. So really want to work with them, work with St. Louis County, work with St. Louis Partnership, and see what they can do to help these businesses.
I'm sure the owners are going to be really happy to hear that. Mayor-elect Ella Jones, once again, thank you for your time this morning and congratulations.
Mayor Ella Jones, City of Ferguson, dynamic, very positive young lady. You have listened to the first time in each one of these cities they've elected an African-American female as mayor. The expectations are high. The goals are high. But one thing for sure, these folks cannot succeed without our support. You have got to support and lift them up and work with them to bring about change in the community. We're truly blessed because this is a phenomenon all over the country. We're blessed to have African-American females that are put in a position of power and position of leadership and shattering that glass ceiling. This is the Richard James Show. We have a business called African Paradise that I mentioned to you each week. We're located at 35 South 8th Street in the downtown of Lebanon, Pennsylvania. We're doing some very positive things. Here we have showing a picture here of my business. But anyway, in regards to the business, we also have new inventory in. We have drums for sale with some of the most beautiful African drums. We have African masks, 4-foot tall giraffes. We have a lot of things, and we are extending an invitation to you to come out and support us and support the legacy of African-American business. But ours is distinctly African, and you'll see some of the most beautiful masks from the Ivory Coast, from Ghana, from Kenya, from east to west. And we also just enjoy meeting some good people. It's very, very, very good. We have, they had a musical festival at the Farmers Market, Lebanon Valley. And there are other business, they specialize in food. Come on out. It'd be like a mini vacation. There's a bar and grill restaurant on the 3rd floor. There's several layers. There's a Japanese restaurant where you can get sushi and other kinds of Japanese food on the 2nd floor. And on the 1st floor, oh my goodness, you have poultry, you have very healthy produce area. We have soul food where you can get the sister, the divas, will knock you down with some of the most beautiful food that they have. A bakery, we have a coffee shop with coffee from all over the world. So come see us. And don't forget about African Paradise, located in Lebanon, downtown Lebanon, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of things going on in Lebanon. It's a city on the rise. It's a diverse city and a wonderful place to be. And we want to really thank and continue to thank every week the Thomases for creating this wonderful, wonderful station, 17104, and giving all of us the opportunity to have such positive programming and to work with us in bringing that about. So I want to say so long until we see you next week. And we want to thank you again for tuning in and listening to our show. And we will continue to embrace some positive things and that are happening within our community. And also, we will also embrace and lift up some of the negative things that we need to deal with. So long, and God bless, and much love to you and your family. This is the Richard James Show signing off. Take care.
Thank you again for tuning to the Richard James Show. And our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. And thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let's hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.